second session of Day 2 of the Huddle 2019 is the future of the South, the southern states in a changing economic and political landscape. But before I invite the speakers on stage, for those active on social media, please follow the Huddle on Facebook, the Huddle 2019. Our Twitter handle is _the Huddle, and we are on Instagram at Huddle_the. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to invite on stage Mr. Krishna Baire Gowda, Honorable Minister for Rural Development, Panchayat Raj, Karnataka, Mr. Mafoy K. Pandiarajan, Honorable Minister for Tamil Official Language and Tamil Culture, Tamil Nadu, Mr. Jayant Thomas, Member of the State Planning Board of Kerala, and Associate Professor at IIT Delhi. To moderate the discussion, I'd like to invite on stage Mr. Narayan Lakshman, Associate Editor, The Hindu. Ladies and gentlemen, the future of the South, the southern states in a changing economic and political landscape. Over to you, Narayan.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first panel of Day 2 of the Huddle. We had a very exciting day yesterday, and I'm very much hoping that we're kicking it off with a bang here. Our panel today is on the future of the South, the southern states in a changing political and economic environment. I have with me a highly distinguished panel, experts on each of 3 states in the South. I have first Mr. Krishna Baire Gowda to my left, Minister for Rural Development and Panchayat Raj in the Karnataka government, and an MLA. And then I have Mr. K. Pandiarajan, Minister for Tamil Official Language and Tamil Culture of the government of Tamil Nadu. And third, I have Mr. Jayant Thomas, who is a member of the State Planning Board of Kerala and an associate professor at IIT Delhi. So Mr. Thomas has deep knowledge of the policy-making aspects, and my other 2 speakers are from the realm of politics. So to understand the future of the southern states, a good place to actually start is by looking at the past and the trajectories in terms of development, in terms of politics that each state has chosen, because indeed they have been quite unique in and of themselves. And to understand why they pursue the development strategies they do, why their politics appear to follow certain patterns that they do. And so to begin that process, I'd like to request each of my speakers, starting with Mr. Gowda, to please tell us what you think makes your state unique, both in terms of the politics and economics of it.
Hi, morning everybody. So to start answering your poser, Karnataka, I think the social advantage we have is of very inclusive and very cosmopolitan culture. So not just in Bangalore, but across the state, Karnataka has managed to blend elements of southern culture, and we are also able to better absorb northern influences also. So in my sense, Karnataka is a very reflective of the national characteristics, and largely as a Kannadiga, I would say it's because Kannadigas are relatively large-hearted and very easy to blend with, and so that's a strength, socially speaking. In terms of Human Development Index, we are more or less on par with the southern states. Some states have done better. All put together, like the southern neighbors, we are doing relatively better because we have had a long history of investing in developing our human resources. Perhaps Kerala has done better in some aspects compared to Karnataka. Tamil Nadu may have done better in some aspects compared to Karnataka, but more or less, we have been investing heavily and over a longer period in our human resources. And what distinguishes all the southern states, including Karnataka, is that we have not waited for the center to come out with a program to start investing in infrastructure or human development. In fact, southern states lose out a lot of central funding because we have preempted the center in investing much earlier in a lot of human and infrastructure development. So as a result, Karnataka also has, as you have probably everybody appreciates, a lot of enormous talent pool. That's an asset of Karnataka. And that's what is actually propelling us forward. So that's in terms of human development. Politically, I mean, all southern states have very unique, but Karnataka is very unique amongst the southern states because of the larger southern states. It's the only state with both national parties having an equal presence. So you can also say we are good or bad, I'm not saying, but we are more closely aligned with the national political dynamics. So that to that extent we are closely assimilated also with the national dynamics when it comes to politics. That's what is unique about Karnataka. And lastly, I'll mention about the challenges. I am also in the policy-making realm. So my challenge, which we will come back to perhaps later during the discussion, I will only mention it briefly. Karnataka has now built its economic might mostly on the services sector. We have leveraged that and tried to expand our manufacturing base. But we started expanding our manufacturing base, and then now we are hit with maturation or stagnation in the manufacturing opportunities. So we are unable to massively expand our manufacturing base. This would probably be an acute problem for our neighbors also, who depend heavily on manufacturing for growth engine, job opportunities, everything. So we don't have huge opportunities in manufacturing now. Our services sector continues to grow, and we are growing very well in services. We are registering one of the high GSDP growth rates. If you look at Bangalore, absorption of commercial space is the highest in the whole country and across many countries. But services is not enough. As we deal with an aspirational class across the country, we also have a very large aspirational cross across the state. And services cannot, though it is absorbing a lot, but cannot absorb all the human resource that is being pushed out into the open market. So my challenge going forward is, in a stagnating manufacturing sector, with very few opportunities for expansion, how long can I leverage my services sector? If I can't, if it doesn't offer me enough opportunities, then how do I meaningfully engage the aspirational class that's expanding by the day? So this is my challenge going forward.
Can I just ask for a clarification there? So when you say services sector, are you talking about formal services sector? Because again, India as a premature tertiarization economy has informal services as a predominant proportion of GDP. So is that what you're talking about as well?
So Karnataka is led by the formal services sector, but the formal services sector then spawns very secondary and tertiary informal services sector also. So there's a lot of ancillarization of services that happens, and then there is also a lot of spin-off. So you see very informal hospitality sector has come up in districts like Coorg, in Chikmagalur. So it's all in the informal sector. So but it's a large economy. We have thousands and thousands of homestays which have come up in our Western Ghats districts. It's all in the informal, but it's spawned by the formal sector in Bangalore. So there is a link, but a point taken that it's formal, which is also fueling secondary and tertiary informal sectors within the services.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kaura. That was very insightful. And actually, your comment on the fact that Karnataka has over years invested, that is a big takeaway I got from what you said, which is you've invested in human capital and human resources, and you've gone on to investing in manufacturing and industries. That obviously is the engine of growth. But some states, including Tamil Nadu, have in parallel done other things. For example, the well-known is the mass welfare schemes. And at sometimes there has almost been a tension in terms of budgetary finance between investing in capital goods and infrastructure versus provision of mass welfare goods. How do you think Tamil Nadu has dealt with that tension? Could you address that while you speak of the state?
Yeah, I'd like to first start with the profile of Tamil Nadu as I see. I think it's one very similar to the other southern states in many respects, but it's also very unique in a few things. One, of course, is that the sense of culture, language is a lot deeper. Most of our political agitations since independence have revolved around threat to the Tamil identity or threat to the Tamil language. I think there's a reason for it. You know, unlike the other four southern states, or the 5 southern states to be precise, including Puducherry, here, of course, politics is revolved around identity, and very strongly so that the two parties, ADMK, my party, and DMK, both have revolved around the Tamil identity, has been very, very strong. And I think part of the reason why the 1963 language bill, as they called it, got such a huge reaction from no other state other than Tamil Nadu, though there were some other states which did that, and many hundreds of lives were lost at that time. And I think even today, as of now, politics is very strongly dominated by identity. And the second part of what you call as welfareism, the definition of Tamil Nadu as a welfare state will be on par with the Norway, Sweden, Finland. That really got articulated in 2012, you know, by Amma, when Purushottam Amma, who steered the entire governance along welfare lines. There are 28 Amma schemes. But what is popularly, you know, misconceived is that it's a state of freebies, which first I want to stand corrected on that. Though we spend 1/3 of our budget size is around 2.4 lakhs crores. The size of the expenditure, both capital and revenue, is about 2.4 lakhs of crores. Out of that, roughly 1/3 goes into what you would classify as welfare schemes. You know, starting from the chapel a student wears to the school, down to the laptop she carries, or the recent one of the two-wheeler subsidy scheme, where our working women, a lakh of them, get every year means to possess a scooty. And on first look, yeah, most people think that this is a thing to placate the mass of population. Honestly, in my view, each of the 28 schemes have a strong developmental component, whether it's the Taliki Tangam, that's basically for the Mangal Sutra, have a sovereign of gold, or whether it is the scheme, recently what we announced was the country hen scheme, 50 country chicks being given to poor families in the villages. This year we begin with about 1 lakh of households. And in each of them, we have had a reflection. Like, for instance, a livestock, we are #1 in the country. Okay, when we gave a cow per family, and then 4 sheep per family, and now 50 country hens per family. I think these are all, in my view, very well-crafted developmental plus welfare measures, which have really become a hallmark of Tamil Nadu economy in every sense. If today we are the most balanced GDP state among the 5 southern states, we still retain 21% of our GDP from agriculture. We do 34% of our GDP from manufacturing, and we have only 45% of our GDP coming from services. I mean, a very strong contrast with the other South Indian states, the southern states. Of course, overall, our collective grievance is that we are getting punished for our growth. We are being punished for good governance. Among all the, like our friend Isaac from Kerala, very eminently articulated, the kind of, penalizing of every parameter the southern states get punished, okay, which has been very strongly propounded by them. In my view, I think the balance that Tamil Nadu has sought to achieve between welfareism and development, between these three wings of agriculture, manufacturing, and services, in spite of investing so much in manufacturing, the 113 industrial parks and estates, we've been pioneer in many of the innovations in industrial promotion. We have niche industries where the industry size itself will be only 300 crores, 200 crores, but Tamil Nadu will hold a niche position there. In Tamil Nadu, the greatest strength is not the Fords and Hyundais and all those giant structures. It's the penetration of these niche industries to the rural areas, whether it's Shivakasi with fireworks and crackers and printing, or whether it is Karur with home textiles and mosquito nets. 90% of India's mosquito nets are made from one small little hamlet, really speaking. Or whether it's the shell bangles for where we have a market leadership. So I think Tamil Nadu's strength is that, which have been very carefully built, supported, nurtured over a long time. All that I would only like to propose as a trigger discussion is that, like India signs alliances with many countries nearby, I think it's time that we start signing MOUs among ourselves. Maybe I would even propose, when I used to be part of CII, I made a proposal and that got caught on among the industry people well. We suggested a pact alliance, P-A-K-K-T, pact alliance. We need to add one more T there. So P-A-K-T, call it if you like. So where all the 6 southern states should collectively create an economic and cultural alliance of sorts, where we started in a small way with the Ek Bharat Shresth Bharat scheme, which Modi government launched some time back, but it remained largely cultural. I would like to propose something like that, where each of us sign an MOU with one another, where we collectively promote many things. And in my view, I'd like to see the day when there's a global investors meet, which we could do together. I mean, each of the states are pioneers in their own way in doing global investors meet. I'm sure it could be a very powerful proposition if we can do it collectively. That's my simple proposal at the trigger of this discussion. And if you look at the challenges, the great challenges for us has been in terms of leadership. As you know, Tamil Nadu is always centered around leaders, whether it's Pedaringer Anna, Kamraj, or then of course Kalaignar, or Puratchi Talaivar, or Puratchi Talaivi. I think we are now, state is propelling people into greatness at this point in time. So that kind of transition is what the state is struggling with. Some people call it a vacuum, but we believe that we fill the vacuum faster than someone else. That's one aspect of a challenge we have. The second, of course, is the jobs. The serious investment we have made in HR with a huge number of educational institutions and all that, I don't think we are creating adequate number of jobs there. So we're doing skill development, we're doing all kinds of stuff. But I think there's a lot to learn in our view. We actually copied very shamelessly something what Kerala did in terms of the entrepreneurship park. I think there are many, many bright spots within the southern states, which we are very delighted to take and implement in our own state. Our greatest attention right now is number 1 there, and number 2 is Tamil language to be carried around the world. UNESCO this year is declared as the Year of Indigenous Languages, and we intend to ensure that in the World Atlas of Languages, Tamil moves from the level 14 to level 10. Huge amount of investments, Tamil language centers around the world, Tamil cultural centers around the world, Sorkuvai scheme to keep adding to the language, more words and all that, a little deeper relationship with our sister languages, Kannada, Telugu, Malayalam to be more precise. We really would like to, shed this inward-looking focus of our language and like to build bridges with especially the Dravidian language family. That's been one of the key things. And of course, add to it is the Pact Alliance, which we like to see as a cultural and economic alliance of sorts, which we'd like to build with the other southern states.
Thank you, Mr. Pandiarajan. That was quite comprehensive, and I think a lot of points there that we could circle back to. And I think a key question that seems to have come up in both speakers so far is this, when a state undertakes investments in capital and also tries to provide human capital inputs, that tension gets resolved in different ways depending on the leadership, depending on the politics of that state and the compelling sort of the incentives that the leaders face. So obviously Kerala stands apart in one sense in that regard because they definitely put healthcare investments and educational investments far ahead of not only what other states did, but even in terms of within themselves, perhaps they put it even ahead of capital-intensive industries and so forth. So, Mr. Thomas, could you tell us a little bit more about what that journey was and how that has influenced where you are today?
Thank you so much. I think, as is well known, southern states, including Kerala, are quite ahead of the rest of the country in terms of economic and social development. But I think what distinguishes the southern states is that in terms of getting the benefits of growth, reaching the benefits of growth to a larger section of the population, southern states are clearly ahead. And of course, Kerala is well ahead in that. If I may just use, because I work on the Indian economy, one result from a study that we recently did. We know not just the southern states, western states are also ahead in economic development. But if you look at the agricultural wages, the level of agricultural wages, all the southern states are very much at the top. Kerala is obviously #1 level of agricultural wages, but Maharashtra, Gujarat, some of the western states, very much at the bottom of the table, although they have a very high level of per capita incomes. So I guess this is something which distinguishes the southern states in reaching the benefits of economic growth to a wider section of the population. And in social development, we all know Kerala has been a leader, not just within India, but even internationally. And Amartya Sen has written about it. Kerala's achievements have been the achievements of, according to him, public action, which is on the one side you had, from 1950s, you had land reforms, which created a more equitable base for the state. I think most importantly, it was never, for education and health and for the basic services for the population, the state it was not a model which was dependent on market. It was on the one side, large investment by the government in education and health. But as public action also means involvement by in other agencies, like the civil society taking an active part, community organizations, the media taking an active role, and so on. So that's about the social development. But if you look at the economic aspect, that again is very interesting. And in fact, here I think Kerala has a relatively little different path.
Just keep your...
Yeah, compared to the other states. Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Andhra Pradesh, their development is relatively, more conventional kind of development. It started with agriculture. Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh, they were states which really benefited from the Green Revolution, the late Green Revolution of the 1980s. You had a large manufacturing base. And when the IT revolution started in the 1990s, these were again the states. Tamil Nadu had Chennai or Coimbatore, Bangalore, of course, in Karnataka, and Hyderabad in Andhra Pradesh. These were the leading states in the IT revolution. But Kerala obviously had a different route, as I said. Even in the 1980s, Kerala's per capita income was less than the Indian average. So there was kind of a paradox. You had a state which is socially very advanced in terms of health, education, comparable to some of the best parts in the developing world. But in terms of per capita incomes, it's quite low. But I think that turned around from the late 80s onwards. And the reasons for that economic turnaround, I believe, one is, on the one side, you had remittances coming from migrant workers from Kerala who are working in the Middle East. It was largely a services-led economic growth. But I believe the other important aspect of that economic turnaround was the lead that Kerala already had in social development. Because although it was a services-led growth, the growth was actually more widespread. It was not, the problem with the services-led growth typically is it can be highly iniquitous. It can actually, the benefits may not actually spread to a wider section of population. But in Kerala, it actually did, partly because of the strong base it already had. Right. On the challenges, of course, I can come back, but I guess the main challenges, which as was already mentioned by the other speakers, is that we already have reached a level. You have relatively high education levels. You already have achieved some advancements in health. Now what? And in a place like Kerala, this is very clear. You have a relatively educated workforce, but can the economy generate jobs which can actually match the aspirations of the people here? Which means actually you have to think of a new economy. It's not the old economy. So I guess the big challenge for all these states, starting with Kerala, but also Tamil Nadu and Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh, will be to move into a new economic structure where you have probably greater role for knowledge-based industries, you have greater role for skilled workers, and so on. So I guess that's a bit...
Okay. Thank you. A second sort of theme that seems to have come up, I think even with Mr. Gowda's comments in the beginning, is that the southern states seem to have almost been punished for being, first movers or ahead of the curve in terms of the investments they've undertaken, the growth they've achieved. This is a question for any of you. How would you frame the relationship that your state has had with the center, not just since, say, 2014, the current administration, but even going back further, in terms of this question of federalism? So as we know, fiscal federalism especially, works through multiple routes. There's the Finance Commission, there are center schemes, there are centrally sponsored schemes where you share responsibility with the state, and then there are state schemes which benefit from these finances too. So how would you characterize that tension and how your state has worked it out?
There is definitely growing tension. This is an age-old subject. Issue hasn't cropped up of late. All of us have had these issues for a longer time. But now, unfortunately, those issues are getting accentuated again, which is not a good thing. We have been developing ways of accommodating various interests and moving forward collectively. But somewhere now that consensus is getting not fractured, but there are assaults on that consensus. Now, I am speaking here from Karnataka, but perhaps my other friends on the panel may agree with me that none of these southern states is averse to collective growth and development. We are as committed. So if anybody questions our commitment to collective growth, I would be very upset. So the moment we speak for ourselves, it should not be construed as somehow fragmentary thinking. We are for collective, but collective also means those who are doing well as well. They should not be left out. And if they are left out, then the other position is actually a fragmentary position. Right? So, anyway, let me come down to the ground level. Now, we are not averse to call it whatever, and pardon me if I use some insensitive words. That's not my purpose, but I'm just trying to communicate an idea. So in the process, if I use an insensitive word, don't hold it against me. We are not averse to, sharing the resources mobilized in our states with other states, perhaps, which require them more. We are not averse to that. But as my friend from Tamil Nadu said, and also I think echoed, don't penalize us for the progress we have made and we are making. Now, I can go on, now abuse your time and everybody's patience and present my thesis on what do I mean by this, but I will just summarize it in one illustration. Yes, cultural issues are there, sensitivities are there. I will not speak much about that, though I will mention, but economically speaking, I contribute 1 rupee to the national exchequer and I get 47 paisa in return, right? You can argue with that. There are various ways of calculating that, and I acknowledge there are various ways of calculating. Somebody else gets 96 paisa, and somebody else gets 1 rupee 70 paisa. Now, I am not averse to somebody getting much higher than what I get in return. But within that, there should be equity. I am not averse to somebody else getting much higher than what I get in return. I repeat myself so that things are clear. But within that, there should be parity, some parity.
Meaning the limit to which you're penalized should be reduced? Is that
I'm not prescribing. I know people in the media look for that one bite. That's your impulse. I don't have a bite-sized reply. But consensus has been developed over years. For example, the population criteria that has been referred to the current Finance Commission, it seems to penalize southern states for the population control measures or responsible population strategies that we have adopted over the 20-30 years. Now you are holding it against us and trying to cut our allocation in the 15th Finance Commission allocation. So is this penalizing progress, or are you rewarding, incentivizing progress? So the point is, don't penalize us. And I can go on giving more and more examples. I would stop there because but there are various substantiating points, illustrations I can make to further that larger point I have made. So that's on the economic front. And also on the cultural front. I mean, you are very passionate about Hindi. I don't have an issue. Let it be. If you allow Hindi on its own, it will spread. But the moment you take it up as, you are a flag bearer for propagation of Hindi, you are bound to attract a reaction from the southern states, which happened in the 60s. And subsequently, better sense prevailed on the whoever are behind, he is behind Hindi. And they let it be. And as a result, Hindi has now actually spread to southern states. So you will actually find people speaking Hindi. Forget Bangalore. But anyway, in Bangalore, the common thing is that you can get by with any language except Kannada in Bangalore. But you will find people speaking Hindi in Madras also. If you allow it,
I think the final frontier is the auto rickshaw drivers. Even if they can understand it, then it's in the blood of the city.
See, everybody, cultural sensitivities on one side. What also works with people is commerce. So because the auto customers tend to come from different parts of the country, so what works is Hindi. So obviously the auto driver picks up Hindi. So you allow those mechanisms to work. We are not averse to Hindi being picked up by anybody. But the moment you try to enforce it, which we have seen in the last couple of years, you are I mean, you are diverting attention from priority issues, first of all. There are larger priorities that this country is facing, and we should collectively tackle those challenges. And secondly, this is not the way to go about doing things. There has been a consensus. So on all these issues, where there have been consensus, why are you trying to again open up those issues? So this is, I think, a recent trend, and it's definitely not in the larger interest, and it also causes unnecessary tension in southern part of the country.
Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, Ms. Pandiarajan,
I hope I have
yeah, I think you've
and also given you some meat
concerns.
to chew on now.
Absolutely.
You also given some headlines, Krishna.
I think he's trying to avoid that. Especially in your role, you know, in the languages sphere, and also there has been this discussion of Dravida Nadu as a concept. It is not just about economic federalism questions, but also about cultural and political. Can we look at both of those aspects?
Yeah, see, as Krishna rightly said, from the 1971 census, where Hindi was spoken by only about 18 crores of people in this country. Okay, first language, second language, third language put together. Today, in the last census, the 2011, which they have only published recently, 2011 census talks about 62 crores of people speaking Hindi, either first language, second language, third language. I think it's been a positive propagation, Hindi Prachar Sabha and all that. We in Tamil Nadu only ask for, you know, let Hindi prosper, no problem, but don't impose it on us. And two, allow us to propagate our language, which Modi himself says is the oldest Indian language, classical language, living classical language. All that praises have been heaped on our language. Allow us to grow, support us to grow. You know, we get hardly 4% of the tax sharing. It was 5%, it got reduced to 4%. But then they increased the overall finance commission sharing from 32% to 42%. Effectively, the amount of subsidies and grants put together, what we get, has been slashed by around 2,000 crores. In a percentage, if you look at it, it's a very significant dip, what we get as grants and subsidies. What we get as project support, which is really dependent on the projects that you initiate, that really is like you go with a begging bowl kind of a thing. And increasingly that's happening to all states.
So can I intervene and say that even after devolution, Karnataka is a net loser?
Yeah, correct.
Enhancement of devolution.
That's right.
The same experience.
That's exactly
in the
what
case
I'm saying. Yeah.
So it's only a headline, increased devolution, but actually it's led to net reduction of money we get as a share of central taxes.
So what we asked them was, like Hindi Prachar Sabha, we'll start a Tamil Prachar Sabha, which is Tamil Cultural Center, Tamil Language Center, because Tamil Nadu is very unique because we have, outside India, the Tamils who are living is almost 1.18 crores. Outside India, the Tamils who are living is almost 1.4 crores currently. In a whole lot of countries, we have people living. It's a very migrant community. Migration has happened in 4 waves or whatever. We want to actually connect with them. Like China got most of its investment out of the overseas Chinese who came back to invest. And investment is also a cultural decision. So we wanted to kind of do this so that this connect with the rest of the world is very strong. You don't have to do it only through Pravasi Bharat stances. You can always do it through Tamil diaspora too. So that's the thing which we've been asking, but we've not got any support. The only support the Culture Ministry or the HRD Ministry does is to Hindi and to Sanskrit, which is not fair. I mean, that's what we are contending. If you were to look at the UNESCO Atlas of Languages, Tamil comes at the 14th level. You have 3,500 languages dying in the next 5 years out of the 6,000 odd languages which are there currently. We don't want Tamil or Kannada or Telugu or Malayalam to have a diminishing kind of a level in these Atlas of Languages or whatever. We are classical languages, all of us. And like there is no need for just investing in one language or two languages. That's a key question that we're raising. It's nowhere anywhere into Dravida Nadu kind of a concept, which Mr. Stalin articulated after a long time. That's in my view, non-starter. Okay, there was a time when DMK and the DK and the Justice Party, which were the earlier proponents of the idea of Dravida Nadu, which never got taken up by the other states. You know, they were really no takers. It was really a way of integrating the huge number of Telugus we had in Tamil Nadu. We have in Tamil Nadu. We have almost 1 crore people who speak Telugu in Tamil Nadu. We have almost 20 lakhs who speak Kannada as their mother tongue. We have almost 15, 16 lakhs who speak Malayalam as their mother tongue. Tamil Nadu, contrary to popular belief, is quite a diverse land. But unfortunately, or fortunately, in a certain sense, they've all taken on Tamil as a language of communication, the people who have come in here. In my view, I would love to see the day when they are able to kind of read and write in their mother tongue as much as they do it in Tamil. If you do that, Tamil Nadu you would see as extremely diverse, very visibly so. You know, some of the greatest contributors to Tamil language and literature have been people who have had Telugu as their mother tongue, Kannada as their mother tongue, Malayalam as their mother tongue. So I would really like to see the day when they actually become ambassadors for our connect with the other South Indian states. And that would be the vision for us and vision of Amma, who is the person who has been the vision creator for our party. In my sense, so coming back to your question of Dravida Nadu, I don't think it's anywhere born to be too soon. But there are certain common grievances which are uniting not only the southern states, I would say the well-performing states in India. I would probably even put a Haryana into it. They also feel very aggrieved, you know, if you really look at, like we were in the GST Council, the alliances which are getting formed were very different lines. Like Bengal, for instance, worked with Tamil Nadu and Karnataka on certain issues. The manufacturing state versus the consuming state. I think center would do well to create more such institutions which are broadly held by the states, like the GST Council, in my view. Yeah, we may have 1,000 differences with the way the council functioned and all that, but I think it was one of the first times where people from the states were actually calling the shots, in my view, on aspects relating to taxation. We should create more such institutions, and I don't think ideas of, see, there are certain things which Dravidian means in Tamil Nadu. Okay, Dravidian means a few things. It means self-respect. It means assertion of your own rights. It means a whole lot of things. It also means many things which today have passed by with the passage of time. There was a time when they said, Adendal, Dravida Nadu, Illai, Sudugadu. You know, the rhetoric of, you know, if you don't do it, you know, we'll kill ourselves and go to, graveyard kind of a thing. Stances of that kind are not getting taken today. Development is the central word, even in Tamil Nadu at this point in time, along with, of course, inclusive growth, which is what the welfareism means to us in Tamil Nadu.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Thomas?
Can I just step in and say, so I fully support my friend Pandiarajan, whatever he said about the idea of Dravidian thing. So I think he's pretty clear that, you know, within Tamil Nadu, we want to have a more inclusive Dravidian thing, and I fully support that, and I think that's, I'm nobody to comment on that. But I think somewhere, the way you asked was, can the Dravidian identity be applied to entire southern space, which is actually not even the idea that they have. Okay. So my question is Hindu more passionate about the Dravidian idea? Because the minister himself is saying, well, we are speaking about Tamil Nadu, whereas Hindu, because you are more loyal to the Dravidian idea, maybe. You are trying to spread it across the south.
No. To be very clear on the record,
on the lighter side.
No agenda there. It's more that it was a political development that Stalin, actually, as you said, did talk about, and it got some
He's very
traction.
clear. All the political parties speak about the Tamil Nadu. And it's a multicultural state. Yeah. And they want to build an umbrella identity.
Correct.
Anyway, that's, I think, perfectly good, and I fully support it. No. But just
I think
on a lighter comment, don't take it seriously.
No problem, it's taken. But I think the point is, again, about the southern states coming together in multiple dimensions.
No, I
the
think,
cultural, political,
Hindu,
and also the economic.
Hindu in the policy note,
I think I've opened myself up to
circulated, mentioned Dravida Nadu as a geographical concept. For me, it's more of a cultural concept. That's a big difference in my view. It was to us a geographical concept at some point in time. Dravid, as mentioned in our national anthem, for instance, is really a geographical concept. In my view, that's not what I meant. And what I meant in pact was a geographical concept, pact, but that's really an economic and social and cultural kind of a integrative effort, which we'd like to take among the states.
Mr. Thomas?
Thank you. So I think regarding the challenges, I believe the big challenge for all of us is going to be a demographic one. Because if you look at the 2011 population, the population in the 0 to 14-year age group for Kerala and Tamil Nadu is around 23%. Whereas for Bihar, it is around 40%. So there's a big difference here. You have a relatively old, aging workforce, population structure, which also means that growth is actually going to be more difficult in the coming years. It also has a lot of implications for the labor market. If you take the Kerala example, for instance, 2011 data, which is the most recently reliable data, our workforce was around 12.5 million, 125 lakhs. You had a migrant workers, mainly in the unskilled sectors, coming from other states, from the easterns, mainly from eastern states. That was, some studies showed it was around 2.5 million, so almost 1/5 of the workforce. But you at the same time, you also had almost 1 million Keralites working in other parts of the world. Again, these are people who are not able to probably find jobs which match their aspirations in Kerala. So the question is how to kind of, as I mentioned earlier, how to kind of create an economic structure which is probably that can match with the aspiration levels of this educated workforce. So which means, again, high development doesn't mean low resource requirements in future. High development actually means higher resource requirements in future, because, I mean, if you want to create knowledge industries, if you want to create highly advanced economic activities, you also need to spend more on, say, research institutions, urban infrastructure, which also means higher, financing requirements. So which brings us to the important question, how to do this. As was already mentioned, I fully agree with this point that we have the center-state relations in the country such that states do not have much resources at their command. These are relatively rich states. All the southern states are relatively rich states, and also because they're relatively rich, high incomes, also high savings. But that savings, we are not able to mobilize, to channelize into productive activities within the state. Just to give an example, our bank deposits in Kerala, 2018, is around 4.5 lakh crores, which includes almost 1/3 of that deposits coming from NRI Malayalis. But only our credit to deposit ratio in the state is very low, one of the lowest in the country, less than 60%. And I can speak, I'm part of the planning board, our state plan is only 30,000 crores. So you have so much savings in the state, but then, only a very small part is the government is able to use that for the larger public good. So I think that's a big challenge. We have to really think of how we can mobilize more resources, how we can use the savings within this region, savings from our own people, how we can use it for our larger productive development. Kerala is actually starting a bank, Kerala Bank. So some new initiatives are happening in this respect. But finally, I would also like to agree with the point that the Honorable Minister mentioned. What has been happening in India from the 1990s is, on the one side, you had a slowdown in public investment, but which also means that states do not have much financial autonomy. States actually have to compete with each other to get, investments from private players, domestic private players or foreign private players, which actually lead to a very unhealthy competition between states. That shouldn't happen. What we should, on the other hand, our federal relations, we should in fact have more cooperation between states. In fact, the challenges that we all face are very similar.
Okay, thank you.
Just a quick one.
Yeah.
You know, one thing to add to what he was saying. I don't know whether it's Mr. Siddharamaya or Mr. Isaac who made the statement about this center of gravity of economy seem to have migrated a little more to south, while the center of gravity as far as politics has really moved a lot more northward.
Yeah.
I think
that was my next
friend
final
Isaac
question.
actually, my friend Isaac made this statement very powerfully in the GST Council. So I don't know whether it is true. At least in the last 2 decades, I see this happening as a trend, which is a little worrisome. You know, due to various political combos which is happening currently, and I don't know whether it will get restored as it used to. You know, when you started independent India, it was not so. It was rather reasonably central.
Yeah.
The center of gravity used to be. So
I know you want to open up the
Yeah,
floor,
exactly.
but I don't want to. But still, I think the point needs to be made, just picking on my friend's point, that how the political gravity could further shift northwards because of the assault on the consensus that exists, is that now Finance Commission also had frozen 1971 as the basis for population, 1971 population as the basis for allocation. Now that has been opened up and brought to 2011. So my poser next is, what prevents the election commission from delimiting the constituencies now based on the 2021 population, which would mean whatever the political strength that the South have, which as it is not reflective, could further weaken if that is also opened up. Now, if you have opened up that issue for the Finance Commission, next you can open it up for reorganization of constituencies also. So that is also a call it concern, which is weighing on our minds, that again progress could get penalized politically also.
Thank you. We have very little time left, so I'll just take one round of questions and we'll wrap it up after that. You pass the mic. Hello. I don't see any ladies. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
To respected Minister, Mr. Krishna, as you mentioned a couple of times, and we are discussing a couple of things with respect to financial autonomy to the southern states, whereas we, southern states, are the revenue generators to the central government, and whereas with 1 rupee, we are getting hardly 50 paisa for our development. And with respect to center state schemes also, it will be 20 or 30% from the center and 80% or 70% beating on state budget. Can we get in near future, we will get financial autonomy with respect to our own states, and from a small section of 20 to 30% to the MOD and space and science and technology to the entire nation development. Penalizing to the states who are generating more revenue rather than giving this creamy budget to other northern states. Near future, is it possible?
Okay.
Can you rephrase the question for me?
No, I'm asking financial autonomy to the southern states where southern states are generating more revenue.
Yeah.
Compared to northern states.
Yeah.
Central government is not giving so much of budget allocation to the schemes as well as to the state budget.
Yeah.
We are penalized.
Yeah.
He's asking for more
financial autonomy from the Finance Commission of India.
I mean, we have...
Sorry, we'll just take 2 more questions. If you have any questions for Tamil Nadu and Kerala, anyone?
Good.
Yeah. Actually, sorry, you in the middle.
Yeah. So it's music to my ears to hear Mr. Pandiarajan talk about a Federation of Southern States. I've recommended it in the United States of South India and the 15th Finance Commission TOR federalism paper that I wrote, that Mr. Thomas Isaac had invited me to the Amravati conclave as well. The key point, I think, is what Mr. Bairegowda mentioned, which I've also recommended, which is if we don't have a Federation of Southern States, the political clout of the Southern States can reduce because of the population reduction, and therefore if there's any delimitation, despite the cabinet decision not to do that and stick to 1971, there can be a delimitation. So the only way to counter the loss of both financial autonomy and political autonomy is to aggregate the political clout of the southern states through a federation. So I request that the Federation of Southern States be taken very seriously. The second point is that India no longer has a unity issue. We are sacrosanct as a country. So it's very important to devolve federal powers to the states themselves, including electoral autonomy, which is not happening today, which we cannot get unless there's a federation of southern states. So really request the southern state heads to take that very seriously and come up with a federation.
Okay, thank you. One last and very short question, please.
A question for Mr. Krishna Baragowda. What precisely, what steps have you taken during your time in power to make the spoils of development more evenly distributed? You specifically spoke about how commercial space is well utilized in Bangalore, huge demand. But ordinary Bangaloreans have paid a huge price for this development. So have there been any measures taken by your government or any contemplated to make the people who've suffered the price of development part of the process of redistribution?
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Gowda?
So the first question about the finances. See, we are okay with the current system. So the financial autonomy is, I'm not asking to redraw the consensus that has developed over years. We are okay. So we are okay with the financial autonomy accorded to the states. Through a series of time, through trial and error, we have developed mechanisms to protect the interests of the progressive states, no matter in the south or north, and also care for those who are coming up. Now the point is, that is being redrawn, or attempts are being made to redraw the consensus that has been developed over time. So what we are only demanding is nothing new, actually. We are demanding that honor the consensus that has been developed over a period of time. And don't go back to the earlier times of 60s and 70s, where these tensions did exist of imposition of Hindi and privileging the interests of certain states over those of the other. So I think there is a retrograde tendency to move back in time. So we are only saying respect what we have developed, the mechanism we have developed, the consensus, the formula that we have developed over time. So what we are actually asking for is a rather, to use the derided term, we are actually status quoists when it comes to this. But we are against the efforts to redraw the consensus. That's on the first part.
And the second one on equitable?
On the equity.
What is Karnataka?
See, Bangalore is within Karnataka. You take decadal growth or semi-decadal growth, it's overshooting every growth projection. So hence we are perpetually in the catching up phase. Now part of Bangalore's solutions to Bangalore's problems, part of, not the whole, part of it lies in developing other centers of growth, which from the last 15 years we have actually been trying. If you may remember, S.M. Krishna tried very hard to develop Mysore as an alternate growth engine to Bangalore. And last 10 years we have been trying to develop Hubli as an alternate growth engine. But somehow, though we have made from our side, meaning the government side, we have made large investments in Mysore, Hubli, but that is not being followed by investments moving in that direction. Investments gravitate towards Bangalore, and hence Bangalore's problems also compound, and we cannot stop Bangalore. Anyway, it's humanly, administratively impossible in a democratic society to say that this is it. And it would not be in the state's interest, because Bangalore is our engine, and we want the engine to be robust. So, but probably your point is also the pain points of Bangalore, of traffic and infrastructure. So we are making investments, but those investments are not adequate when it is compared to the growth that is happening and when it is compared to the people who are getting attracted to Bangalore, which is far surpassing not only Bangalore's growth projections, but those of all probably other growth centers in the country put together, especially in the services sector. Now, coming to the middle question, so I think it will go to Pandiarajan, but I just want to quickly make the point that, see, let this not be construed as some sort of a South versus North. That is not at all the idea. Not at all the idea. And she also made the point that the unity is, you know, not the question here. But there is an effort to portray it as such. But in not the mind of even one Southerner, perhaps, I may be overstating, but I'm generalizing, there is any question about the unity. I bring up this issue because even about 2 years ago, we in Karnataka wanted our state flag to be recognized officially. And the pontiff sitting in Delhi, especially in the media, their immediate reaction is, oh, is this not going to amount to some sort of a...
Anti-national.
Sorry?
Anti-national.
Yes.
Sedition.
That is the amount of insensitivity the so-called pontiffs who sit and pontificate have. That I get very, that's an insult. You do not have the right to question my commitment to the unity and integrity. On the other hand, you are using that language to suppress my aspirations. And by suppressing my aspirations, you will actually drive me away.
Okay. Thank you. Just 30-second response from you, Mr. Pandiarajan. To her comment. No, just about the Federation of States and...
No, that she reiterated what I said. Okay. Yeah, maybe we should take it.
I have one question.
No, we can't take, we're past time, we can't take any more questions. Thank you so much. That was a very informative discussion. And anyone who has other questions, please feel free to speak to them outside. You'll be most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Krishna Bairagowda, Mr. Pandiarajan, and Mr. Jayant Thomas. Narayan, may I please request you to present mementos to our speakers?